You know, Hollywood might look like a dream job from the outside, but if you mess up, you could find yourself out faster than a popcorn kernel in a microwave. And that's exactly what happened to these actors. Yeah, even the biggest names in Hollywood can get fired, and trust me, it can be wild. So grab your popcorn, but don't eat it too fast, you might get fired. Because today we're diving into actors who got fired from major Hollywood roles, and the reasons might just surprise you. Let's go! All right, let's start with a twist. Julianne Moore. You might know her from a ton of iconic films, but did you know that she was fired from Can You Ever Forgive Me? Just days before filming started? Yeah, you heard that right. Moore was set to play Lee Israel, a literary forger. But according to her director at the time, Nicole Holofcener, they had some major creative differences. Moore wanted to wear a fat suit and fake nose, which her director wasn't on board with, so the axe fell. Ouch. The director's replacement, Marielle Heller. And guess what? The film ended up earning 2 Oscar nominations. And Moore? Well, she still hasn't seen it. Guess it's a little too painful. Yikes. Next up, Ryan Gosling, the man, the myth, the abs. But, this time the abs didn't quite work out for him. Gosling was initially cast in The Lovely Bones as a grieving father, but he showed up to set, and he was a lot heavier than expected. Ryan went a bit off book and gained 60 pounds for the role, drinking melted Haagen-Dazs ice cream to bulk up. But director Peter Jackson was like, that's not what we had in mind. Gosling quickly learned he was not what Jackson had imagined for the character. And then enter Mark Wahlberg. Poor Gosling was sent home faster than a melted ice cream cone. Now to Megan Fox and the Transformers Dark of the Moon incident. Oh, Megan Fox, a classic case of a star being too hot for Hollywood. After the success of the first 2 Transformers movies, Fox was poised for her 3rd go-around in the Transformers franchise. That is until she compared director Michael Bay to Hitler in a magazine interview. Whoops, big whoops. Bay didn't take too kindly to that, and the franchise's executive producer, Steven Spielberg, apparently told him, "Fire her right now." Fox's character was replaced by Rosie Huntington-Whiteley, and just like that, bam, Fox was out. Talk about an explosive exit. And now to Natalie Portman in the Romeo plus Juliet firing. Okay, this one is wild. Natalie Portman was cast as Juliet in Baz Luhrmann's Romeo plus Juliet, the one with Leonardo DiCaprio. But she was 13 at the time, and her love interest? Leo was 21. So, yeah, that's a bit of an age gap for romantic scenes. Portman eventually had to bow out because, well, having a 21-year-old DiCaprio be your lover while you're barely a teen didn't exactly sit right. Baz Luhrmann, the director, later admitted it just didn't feel right seeing Leo next to a very young Portman. And the role went on to Claire Danes. Guess some things are just meant to be. Now, we have Stuart Townsend, who was supposed to be Aragorn in The Lord of the Rings. He spent months training for the role, getting ready to take on the King of Gondor. Then, after just a few days of filming, director Peter Jackson said, "You know what? Never mind." Townsend, who was 29, was replaced by Viggo Mortensen, 14 years older than him. Talk about awkward. Townsend was like, "What just happened?" Mortensen was quickly called in at the last minute, and the rest is history. Aragorn became a legend, but not in Townsend's hands. And speaking of Viggo Mortensen, let's talk about the time he was almost in Oliver Stone's platoon. He was cast, trained for the role, read everything he could about Vietnam, only to find out through a newspaper that he'd been replaced. Yep, Willem Dafoe took the role instead. Mortensen later learned that the film's budget had increased and Stone wanted a bigger name. So he got axed and never even got the courtesy of a call. Now that's cold. Okay, this is one of the most famous firings of all time. Eric Stoltz was originally cast as Marty McFly in Back to the Future. He filmed several weeks of footage, but it was a total disaster. Director Robert Zemeckis and producer Steven Spielberg realized Stoltz didn't have the comedic timing they needed. So they kicked him off the set, and Michael J. Fox, who was their first choice but was tied up with family ties, stepped in. The rest is movie history. Can you imagine Back to the Future without Fox? It would be back to a whole different future. All right, picture this. Apocalypse Now is in full swing, and Francis Ford Coppola, the mastermind behind The Godfather, decides to fire Harvey Keitel from the lead role of Captain Willard. Why? Well, Coppola said Keitel just wasn't right for the part. What? This guy was a real-life Marine with tons of jungle experience. Uncomfortable in the jungle? Really, Coppola? So, in walks Martin Sheen, who ends up giving us a legendary performance in one of the most iconic war films ever made. Meanwhile, Keitel's probably out there saying, well, I guess I was too good for that role. Okay, Richard Gere and Sylvester Stallone in the same movie sounds like Hollywood magic, right? Wrong. These two were not exactly best buds on set of The Lords of Flatbush. Apparently, Stallone couldn't stand Gere's attitude. Stallone was like, I'm Rocky, don't mess with me, while Gere was busy being, well, Gere. Things escalated quickly when Gere, in a completely unforgivable move, spilled mustard all over Stallone's lap in a car. Now, I'm no expert, but that's definitely not how you impress the guy who's about to punch you out in real life. Full-on fight, Gere out, Stallone in. Gere? Oh, don't worry, he found another way into Hollywood, just not through mustard-covered cars. Now let's talk Predator. Jean-Claude Van Damme, the kickboxer extraordinaire, was originally cast as the alien villain. Sounds cool, right? Well, turns out the suit was anything but cool. Van Damme was overheating, struggling to breathe, and reportedly passed out on set. That's not exactly the terrifying alien they had in mind. So what happened? They kicked Van Damme to the curb and replaced him with Kevin Peter Hall, a 7'2" basketball player. Yeah, that guy. Suddenly, the Predator was scary again. Van Damme? Well, he hated the costume and was already frustrated with the whole project. But hey, at least he didn't have to wear that sweaty nightmare anymore, right? Now to Aliens, folks. Legendary movie. But guess what? James Remar was originally cast as Corporal Hicks. 2 weeks into shooting, and bam, he's out. Why? Drug problems. Yeah, turns out Remar had some serious offset issues, and the director didn't exactly have time for that. So in comes Michael Biehn, who nails the role and gives us that iconic performance. Remar? Well, he didn't get to fight facehuggers, but at least Biehn delivered one of the best performances in sci-fi history. So I guess Remar got a good cheese story to tell. But no xenomorph action for him. And then there's Channing Tatum, the guy we all know as a magic man on stage and a rock-solid soldier on screen. But did you know that at one point he was almost fired from the G.I. Joe franchise? Yeah, I know, it's hard to believe. After the first G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra, 2009, Tatum admitted he wasn't feeling the role of Duke. In fact, he pretty much wasn't feeling the whole movie. To be honest, I didn't love it. I wasn't connected to the character, and I don't think I was the right guy for the job. So what does Hollywood do when one of their stars isn't loving the role? They recast him, of course. Enter Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in G.I. Joe, Retaliation 2013, taking the spotlight like the true action hero he is. Now, don't get me wrong, The Rock absolutely rocked that movie, but poor Channing, he got booted to a smaller role in the sequel. But hey, Tatum didn't let it get him down. He went on to become the Magic Mike we all know and love, with 21 Jump Street and Foxcatcher in his rearview mirror. So, getting kicked off, G.I. Joe? Turns out not the worst thing that ever happened to him. Now let's talk about Katherine Heigl. Yes, the woman who made us all laugh and knocked up, until she didn't. You see, after the movie hit big, Heigl was riding high. But she made a little mistake when she called the film misogynistic in an interview. Whoops. I loved the movie, but I gotta be honest, it was a little sexist. I mean, the women were kind of the butt of the joke. Well, guess what? Hollywood doesn't exactly love it when one of their stars bites the hand that feeds them. And that's exactly what happened. When it came time to make the sequel, This Is 40, 2012, Heigl was, well, let's just say she wasn't invited back. Instead of Heigl, they just wrote her character out like poof, gone. Talk about a harsh Hollywood reality check. If there's one thing you don't do in Hollywood, it's criticize the film that made you famous, even if you think it's a little bit misogynistic. But to her credit, Heigl didn't let it stop her. She found success in TV with shows like State of Affairs and Mad Men. Though it's safe to say she didn't get any invites back to Knocked Up 2. Guess some bridges are just a little too burned to cross. Finally, There Will Be Blood, a movie filled with drama, oil, and one intense performance after another. Kel O'Neill was originally cast as Paul Dano's brother, but apparently O'Neill and director Paul Thomas Anderson didn't exactly vibe. O'Neill said working with Anderson was like my walking on eggshells. Yeah, that's probably not the best environment for making a gritty drama, huh? So out goes O'Neill and in comes Paul Dano, who ends up playing both brothers. And let me tell you, Dano crushed it. O'Neill? Well, he had to find another way into Hollywood, but Dano's performance? Oscar level. Good. Guess sometimes a little tension leads to great art, right? And that is it, folks, your list of renowned actors who were fired from some of the biggest movies in Hollywood history. Whether it was a creative difference, a bad attitude, or just really bad timing, these stars learned the hard way that Hollywood can be a pretty unforgiving place. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Hollywood's greatest firings, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a story. And hey, let us know in the comments which firing shocked you the most. Until next time, keep your popcorn ready for the next wild ride through Tinseltown.